Join me, we'll teach the world to fly. Will you come and join me? I'll fly you to the sky. Jump on in, it's time to fly. Let imagination go round. Jump on in and take my hand. Run a little bit till you catch the wind. Run a little bit till you catch the wind.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Elevate Your Leadership podcast with me, your host, Bob Pizzini. If you've listened to previous episodes, you know that I say what I'm about to say at the beginning of every episode, which is I love having discussions with people who not only bring great value to me and my organization, but these are people who I know are going to bring great value to you and your organization. Today's guest, I'm super excited about. I have Allie Stephens in the studio. Allie Stephens owns Anchor Alley's restaurant in Virginia Beach, a restaurant with 2 locations. I'm going to go over some biographical information, and then we're going to get into the discussion. Allie served in the U.S. Navy from 2007 to 2013, and we're going to talk a little bit about her military career. Allie worked on the War of 1812 mission while she was on active duty. Allie worked at Hooters for much of her young adult life, starting as a waitress and elevating herself to a trainer and marketing. And she was a member of the corporate team. And her early restaurant experience led to her opening 2 wonderful restaurants here in Virginia Beach. All right, without further ado, Allie Stephens, welcome to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast.
Thank you for having me, Bob. I'm really excited to be here today.
That's what everybody says when I say, welcome to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast. So, Allie, we talked about the restaurant in your intro, a little bit about the Navy. Where did you grow up?
So I'm an Army brat. I was born in Fort Benning, Georgia, and we lived in Garmisch, Germany for a little bit and then ended up in Fort Drum, New York. My dad was part of the 10th Mountain Division, and he got out of the Army there, and we decided to stay in that area until I graduated high school, and then I moved down to Virginia in 2003. That is when I started working for Hooters Restaurant and loved working for that company, and ended up moving to the Panhandle of Florida, Pensacola, to work at Hooters in Hooters, Florida, because Hooters comes from Florida. So if you're going to work at Hooters, and
I've been to the original one, Clearwater area.
Yep, Clearwater. That's a great location, and they have a lot of the original stuff there still. But I wanted to work for them in Florida. I really enjoyed it, but my heart was still attached to the military and knowing that I've always wanted to serve. So right around 2006, 2007, I followed that calling and did a program in the Navy as a Master at Arms with a combination of active duty and reserve program. So,
okay. Tell us about some of the cool stuff you did while you were on active duty.
Sure. So my favorite mission I ever did was with Mesron 6, and I was super lucky.
And what's Mesron?
It's Maritime Security Squadron.
Okay.
So they have 2 sides to it. They have the water side and they have the land side. I was part of the land side. So I did the ECPs, I did the gun mounts, I did the vehicle inspections.
What are ECPs? We have a lot of private sector civilians listening to us.
The entry control points. So the gated area where people would gain access to the base or location. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you served until 2013.
Yes.
And I suspect the whole time this restaurant idea was rolling around in your head?
It was definitely brewing, for sure. I've always known for a long time that I've wanted to own my own business. I've always had entrepreneurial blood in me since I was in high school. When I was living on right outside Fort Drum, I worked for an ice cream truck. And that's where I really got a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit. I would go to the motor pools where all the soldiers were prepping their vehicles and training and stuff like that. And I would just set up shop right outside their garages and I just really enjoyed doing that and the hustle, and worked in McDonald's, worked for Wendy's, worked for fine dining, learned all aspects of the restaurant industry. And one thing I really liked about it was, one, I was good at it. I enjoyed it, and it is challenging. But also, I noticed right away I could impact people daily through food. Because think about it, you're having a bad day, but then someone gives you a warm cup of coffee or a cocktail or a nice hot meal or whatever. Usually your day changes, your mood changes. And I noticed that right away, that I could impact people's lives positive throughout their day through the restaurant industry.
That is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the folks at home, for the folks out there in TV land, Allie and I met probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And it was when Fox News was coming down to Virginia Beach to do one of their diner shots. And they called me. I've got some friends up there with Fox, and they called me and they said, "We're coming to Virginia Beach. Can you recommend a great diner to go to?" And it's ironic because at that time, somebody else was in my building, I Fly Virginia Beach, and overheard me talking about the fact that I'm looking for a diner. And this person said, "You have to go to Anchor Alley's." And so I tracked you down. And
who was that person? Do we know?
Remember? That was Ray Barrett. Ray Barrett. EOD guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to thank him.
Yeah. Ray Barrett, EOD guy. He just happened to be here at the time. And
thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
Hope you're listening.
Yeah. Well, I'll make sure he gets this episode.
Okay. Great.
So that was super cool. But then Fox has come down, I think, once or twice more. So they've done a few diner shots with you.
Yeah.
At your Shore Drive location.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. And you're a big part of the community. You have a very unique theme. Let's talk about the theme of your restaurants.
Sure. So obviously we are military, themed, mainly Navy, but I have added a lot of Air Force, Army, Coast Guard flair to it as well.
Well, I'm going to sabotage that stuff.
Okay. And but the idea is, we do majority of our front of the house staff, servers, hosts, bartenders, are female. We have had some guys work for us in the past, but majority of us, it is female. And it's kind of, we always want to have that vintage red, white, and blue, Army, khaki colors, because we want to have, that patriotic vibe. So that is our theme. One of our main staples is all the girls in the front of the house team, when they're working, they wear red lipstick. We don't require our guys to wear that, but the girls, when they
Thank
wear
goodness for that.
Yeah. People always ask it, the guys have to wear red lipstick. I'm like, okay, y'all are funny. But the reason why is because the women who work for me are different ages, different skin tones, hair color, shapes, sizes, and I want them to be able to wear our uniforms and feel good, but some people might wear something different than someone else. So how we all come together and unify is with that red lipstick. It's like our signature thing. You'll see it on our menus. You'll see it, the red lipstick kiss on, my truck and things like that. So it's kind of like just a little logo that we put throughout, but that's what that is. And, when you're in the restaurant, you'll hear all different types of music. You could hear one song could be a classic country, then it could be Frank Sinatra. You could hear Led Zeppelin, but it's all just, America's classic, songs from the 40s.
Yeah, that's cool. I've noticed that.
Yeah. It's just got a good all-American vibe. For sure.
So let's talk about the menu a little bit. So
okay.
I'm a creature of habit. I used to get the Banger Bowl all the time, which is absolutely friggin' delicious, out of this world. And then you came up with the Impossible Bowl. So I'm trying to watch my cholesterol, so they got all this fake meat out there. But that Impossible Bowl is delicious. But the things, so the Banger Bowl, Banger is either a geographic reference.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And there's Navy history and tradition there. But let's talk about some of the other items on your menu that have that Navy really flavoring, to use a pun.
So the number one seller, both restaurants, is the Frogman burrito. You know, some people might not know this, but Frogman is a nickname named after the Navy SEALs. And it is a burrito that has 6 eggs, bacon, sausage, peppers, jalapenos, onions, cheddar cheese. It
Mamma
comes with,
mia.
yeah, it comes with sour cream, our fresh pico de gallo, and a side of whatever they like. So that's our top seller. The Banger Bowl is our second. And then our third is our CB Juicy Burger. So people who don't know. So CB, they build stuff for the Navy. So they build the bases, they build, the fobs, they create the places that the Navy guys show up to. So I just thought it'd be really cool to have a CB build your own burger. And people love that pun, and that thing sells like crazy.
No, super cool. And again, for the folks at home, CB, Charlie Bravo, the letter C and the letter B, what that stands for is Construction Battalion. So in the Navy, we have our own construction battalion. We call them CBs. And so that's a lot of fun. I love the menu, and I am going to find something that's EOD flavored, right? So my background, explosive ordnance disposal, and I'm going to come up with like the coolest thing for the menu. No idea what it's going to be.
I can't wait.
Maybe we should work together on it, but we got to get some EOD flavoring, so to speak.
Absolutely.
In the menu. Okay, so Elevate Your Leadership. This podcast ultimately is about leadership. You have 2 locations with a very unique offering, delicious food. You've appeared on, as I said earlier, on Fox News. So you're known nationally,
Yes.
Outside of locally. How many employees do you have?
So right now we're currently between 35 and 40. Our goal is 50, but since post-pandemic with staffing issues, we haven't been able to really reach that goal back, but we are definitely working towards that every week.
Yeah.
We just actually hired a new cook. He starts today.
That's
so I'm
great.
Thinking about him this morning.
Yeah.
How his first day is going to be. He's actually a coastie.
Ah,
He's got the Coast Guard. So,
all right.
I was giving him, I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Some inter-service rivalry.
Yeah.
It's fun. I love it. I had a guest on, Nanette Miller, who's running for the second city council district. And when I introduced Nanette and said, Nanette, welcome to be here, the first thing she said was, well, thank you, Bob. This is my first podcast. And of course, if it's your first time in the Navy, you owe me a case of beer, right? So that's probably the case with you too, but I won't pry.
Okay.
So you have 30 something and you're working your way up to 50. I have 40 employees at iFly Virginia Beach. But from a leadership perspective, what is your approach, or how do you define leadership, especially in the restaurant business? I mean, that's a tough business. Restaurateurs have high turnover, probably higher than everybody else. We're still kind of on the backside of this COVID thing, but what is it like, and how do you lead 40 employees over 2 locations?
That's a really good question. And honestly, that is something that I have learned over the years of doing this, the past 9.5 years. Your 2013 Anchor Alley is not the same as your 2022 Anchor Alley. I've definitely learned. I've definitely grown. I've made some mistakes as a leader. I've made some really good accomplishments as a leader. And with the staff that I have, the truth is, I would say more than half of my staff that I have now, they've been with me since the very beginning. So I do have a good retention rate on at least half of my staff. And how I've been able to do that with them is give them as much value as I can, put them first. One thing about leadership that's important to me is, one thing I've noticed is there's some leaders who are leaders because they're put in that position of leadership, but they're not truly those leaders. What separates them, the good from, the not good, whatever you want to say, is some live for themselves and some live for others. And one thing about me with all my relationships, personal, professional, with my team, vendors, family, is I live for others. It's never about me. It's always about them. So, I listen to John C. Maxwell. I do listen to Tony Robbins. I'm a huge fan. I have mentors here locally. I talk to my friends. I've had, leadership training when I became an E4 and an E5 in the Navy.
Military leadership training is really, especially in the junior enlisted ranks. I mean, I still remember most of that today and the lessons that I learned, and I apply that within this facility.
Yeah, and when I was in the Navy, it's funny that just thinking back to those moments when I would go to training sites and schools. I don't know how it happened because I never volunteered, but every class, every school I went to, the instructors are like, you're class leader. I'm like, okay. Every time I was class leader.
Because you grew up in a military family and you just had the discipline,
I guess so.
Yeah. It's not hard to see, hard to identify.
So they're like, you're class leader, you're in charge. And sometimes I'd be the only female. And I'm like, okay. So through my Master at Arms A school and the other schools that came with that, I was always, duty section leader, class leader. And I always did that well. And I did enjoy it once I learned how to do it, but you have to kind of figure it out because you want to do a good job. So I remember going to instructors, talking to them. I'll ask people about situations. Hey, how would you approach this? What do you think about this? But even though I have leadership qualities and I like to say I'm a natural born leader, I'm also very coachable, very, very coachable. I want to learn from the best. I want to grow. I want to be the best that I can be. And so through those experiences, that is how I've learned how to do those things. And I'm still learning, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And, but with the team that I have now, giving them value, giving them responsibility, giving them credit, which is really important, even though I'm Allie Maker, like I said, great job to you guys today. Or, I'll always showcase my staff to our customers, to the community. I could not have it without them. I could not be where I am without them. So, and just appreciation. We did a teamwork building exercise a couple weeks ago. I took them to the adventure park. They got to climb up in the trees and stuff. Yeah. So they really enjoyed that. And
where's the next team building trip going to be?
Right here at iFly, Virginia Beach.
Cool.
So right after the holidays. They know too. They're very they know. They're very excited about that.
That's super cool. Yeah. So you are a student of Tony Robbins, John Maxwell. I'm a Maxwell certified coach as well. I don't in my consulting and in my public speaking, in my coaching, I use some of the Maxwell stuff, but really what I use is my experience and 26 years in the Navy. In Navy Special Operations, and then now 11 years in the private sector, and my lessons learned are the lessons that I try and put forth. But you hit the key point there, which is lifelong learning. You're always learning. You're always looking to get better. In my presentation of the science of leadership, I have 6 key factors, and factor number 6 is just that. It's lifelong learning, and lifelong leaders are lifelong learners. And there's something else that I talk about in my offerings called metacognition. And it's thinking about thinking. It's thinking about, thinking about a situation that maybe you handled it well, but you still think about it and say, could I have done that better?
All the time.
Yeah. And obviously in situations that didn't go well, you think about those and you say, what could I have done differently? But this metacognitive process is very important for leaders to be aware of and to use this very valuable tool. So restaurants have, just like weekends here at iFly, we know Saturday from this time to this time, it's like all out, we're fully sold out. People are arriving, people are flying, people are post-flight, people are in the classroom getting ready for flight. So I'm sure in the restaurant, you have those cycles in well. And then how do you handle that with your team?
Sure. So, doing this 9.5 years, our peak moments, seasons, weeks, they're predictable. We know that they're coming. We know how long it's going to last. So that moment of how I manage them or lead them through those shifts actually stemmed from an experience that I had in boot camp. And I will never forget it for as long as I live. But my RDC chief, he was a young
RDC recruit
something commander.
Recruit something commander. Used to be RCC, Recruit Company
RDC.
Commander.
Now I'm wondering because I should know this. Recruit Division Commander.
Okay.
That's what it is. Yeah,
Okay.
Recruit Division Commander.
Okay.
So my division was 075. So when you go to Anchor Alleys, when you see get your Wi-Fi passcode, the 075, that's my boot camp division number.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
But I remember going through boot camp, and I remember, we had about 100 people in our division, and you had to do PT almost every day. You had to do PT almost every day. And with that, a lot of people they join the Navy, but they're not really, in the best shape or condition. So a lot of them struggled through, the physical training. And he would get so frustrated with us, not me, because I would run, but he would come out in the middle of the floor. And I remember this one day, he put his hands on his hips and very colorfully said, "Run."
He used some colorful language.
Word, run. Dang it, run. This is only 12 minutes of your measly life. So just get it done and do a good job doing it. It's going to end. And I remember I laughed initially when I was running because, it was funny to me, but at the same time, it was like this light bulb went off and it clicked. And I was like, everything does end. The bad days will end. The struggling moments will end. You just got to get through it. So I had that experience from him. And then the same, from him in boot camp, he taught us, I'm going to teach you all how to get through your Navy career. There's one secret to get through your Navy career. And it's kind of like the same ideology. He said, always think about chow. Just think about chow. That's all you have to do because you wake up, you have chow. Then you think about, okay, lunch. So you get through whatever evolution you have that morning, whether it's training, whether it's a mission, whatever. And then you have lunch. Then what's next? And you have dinner. He says, just always think about chow. So with with that mindset, I've lived my life through that throughout my Navy career, but also in the restaurant industry because, brunch, like you said, it's high volume. It's stressful on the team. It's like a Coke bottle. Sometimes we could get tons of tickets in and they'll get frustrated. So in those moments, I have to motivate. I have to get them excited about it. I have to motivate them.
Yeah. Keep them on task.
Yes, letting them know, hey, you're doing a good job. We got 3 hours left. We got 2 hours left. We only got like, this is no big deal. We only got 3 hours left of this. We got this. And giving them that confidence that one, it's going to end. In their mind, they're like, okay, I just have to accomplish this for 2 more hours. Mm-hmm. But also when they would get really what's called in the weeds, restaurant term, I would say things to them like, do not let that ticket kick your ass. Like I'm notorious for knowing that. I was like, you're gonna let that ticket kick your ass?
Yeah.
Or who's gonna win here? You or that? It's a piece of paper. It's just food. It's just eggs, man. It's just eggs.
Yeah.
And that mentality kind of would help them click that they weren't gonna let this defeat them, or they weren't gonna be tired. They were gonna get through it. And even though I've been doing this for 9.5 years, I have to remind them every weekend. So it's just a thing because, they're human. We're all human. They get tired. They get worn out. And I just always have to make sure that I keep that positive reinforcement and that mindset with them.
Yeah, motivating, regardless of what organization you lead. Mm-hmm. It's a primary responsibility of a leader is to keep people motivated.
Yes.
And but you hit a key thing there talking about your RDC. You had what I call a defining moment, right? Mm-hmm. Something happened earlier in your life that you think about probably every day or
all the time.
Frequently. Exactly. And it helps keep you on course. It helps you set cardinal direction, helps you kind of, a North Star. And those defining moments are huge. And I've got 3 or 4 of them in the book I wrote, Elevate Your Leadership, which will be out before Christmas. Folks at home, Elevate Your Leadership will be out before Christmas.
I love it.
I talk about the importance of capturing those defining moments because they really, number one, they made us who we are.
Yes.
And defining moments could be a negative experience. Like in my case, I had a few negative ones where it's like, oh man, I wish I could get this day back and start over. And then obviously very positive ones, but capturing those defining moments and then being able to tell a story, especially if you're a leader, you tell a story around these defining moments. And that helps, number one, humanize you with, amongst the people that you lead, but also gives them something to think about or a new way to view things. So I'm glad you captured that defining moment and shared it. Folks, we are going to take a quick break for capitalism. Allie and I are both good capitalists, and we will be right back. And we are back on the Elevate Your Leadership podcast with me, your host, Bob Pizzini. I am I am having a discussion with Allie Stephens. Allie Stephens, who owns Anchor Alley's in Virginia Beach, a really cool kind of Navy-themed restaurant with 2 locations, and the food is out of this world.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, so I love it. And also, the veteran community is a very tight-knit community, and I know that active duty and veterans, they go to your restaurant maybe the first time to support a fellow veteran. But I know after my first visit, it's like it's like after our hockey games every Sunday, we come in either Saturday or Sunday when we have an early hockey game. Guaranteed we're coming in for a little bit of brunch.
Yeah.
So super cool. So let's go back to leading in the capacity that you lead in your restaurant. I was last Sunday, I was in your restaurant after a hockey game, and you and I were having coffee, and a tray full of dishes crashed and hit the floor. And you turned around and looked, and you got up and you went and got the broom and the dustpan, and you just simply helped your team clean up what was going on.
Yep.
You didn't berate anybody. You didn't yell at anybody. You didn't belittle anybody. You just pitched in. And I think that's a crucial component of leadership. What's the boss going to do here? But I imagine at this point, your team wasn't surprised by that because they've come to know who you are. And that's the kind of thing that you do. Can you kind of talk about that approach a little bit?
Sure. So when I started Anchor Alleys, I was only 29. So I was very, very young. And to be honest, a lot of people did not believe in me. Even the people, my leadership from the Navy, I'll never forget the moment when I told them I was not re-enlisting. It did not go well. They called me into the office, the CO, the XO, chief, my training LPO, and they were like, Stephens, what do you mean you're not re-enlisting? Like, you're a great sailor. You have a really good opportunity here. What's going on? Like, let's talk about all these different programs. We'll get you into the schools you want. And I was like, and I remember looking at my commanding officer, and I said to him, I said, sir, I understand I'm a good sailor, but I also know in my heart that I can do more for the world as Anchor Alley than I can as MA2.
Cool.
I remember telling him that, and they kind of backed off. They still weren't happy, but they kind of backed off when I said that. And they're like, restaurants don't make it. You're going to fail. And I was like, I'm ready to take on that challenge, because even though I've had many failures, I've never felt like I was going to fail, if that makes sense. And so, with that, I had thought about, how am I going to, lead and get the respect of my staff being this young female? And that
challenge unto itself, for sure.
So there's only one way to do it. And that is know every position and do it better than everybody else. You have to. So since day one, I have always worked on the front lines with my team, and I've done everything from dishes. I mean, anyone comes in the restaurant, they always see me working. Dishes, running food, greeting customers, cleaning tables. You saw me, sweeping. Yesterday morning, at Shore Drive, I had to work brunch. I was online dropping fries. 9.5 years in, we were so busy. I wanted to help them. I'm like, I'm going to drop fries and tater tots. We were selling banger bowls like crazy. I was like, we even ran out of tater tots for a moment.
Get that banger bowl, folks. It is delicious.
Yes. So I had to do that. And, but also from before that, with my Hooters career, I had worked for Hooters on and off for 10 years. So I had already had such a strong reputation in, professionally. So when I said I'm opening a restaurant, I had a lot of people leave franchise restaurants to come work for me. They didn't care. They didn't care where it was. They just know how I am. And they're like, I want to be a part of that. Whatever she has going on, I know we're only at ground zero of it, but I want to say that I was there for it.
Super cool.
Yeah. And they helped me. Majority of my cooks, I've worked with Hooters since 2003. So I've had that longevity with them. So they know how I work. We already have that professional rapport. So it did give an advantage on that.
That is super cool. And, I have to say, I faced the exact same kind of doubt, when I wanted to do this iFly thing. First of all, nobody knew what iFly indoor skydiving was, right? It was a new, especially when you talk to a banker, they go, oh, what? And so that was quite a challenge for sure. And there were plenty of people who said, who are you? You're never going to succeed in that industry. This is debt service is a challenge and just all these things. But I knew in my heart, based on what I have seen, what I experienced, that this activity in this location, Virginia Beach, was going to be a winner. And here we are 8 years later. One of the highest performing out of 35 or so iFlies in the US, where we've always been in the top 4 and top 1 or 2 the last couple of years. So
great.
So you have to believe in yourself, but you face a challenge that I didn't face. You are a woman, and when somebody says to you, oh, you're the owner, right? So people come in here and they look at me and they go, oh, old white guy, you must be the owner, so they say, are you the owner? But in your case, you are a very young looking woman. And what is that like for you when and going back 10 years when you were even younger? So what is that like?
So for years I would go back and forth with the idea of presenting myself on the front lines as the owner, or just being more behind the scenes, because being the face of the company and existing, it's challenging because people are going to judge you, off of looks, off of age, off of so many things.
For sure.
So were times where I'd go back in my mind is like, well, if they don't know it's me and they just think it's a brand, maybe I can win them over that way first. And then they realize, oh, it's this, younger lady. She's done this since she was 29. She's extremely dedicated. Has been here every day, since day one. So I would go
brilliant, actually. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me win them over with my brand. Provide super high quality service, super high quality food that's served by servers who know their purpose and their identity. It's brand awareness and brand identity is what business is all about. Please continue. Sorry.
So I did that, and then the past couple years I've had to switch off of that completely, and the reason because of that was because of COVID. Because when COVID hit and they shut us down, because the whole country, the whole world was shut down. I'll never forget my whole staff looking at me like, okay, what are we going to do now? Like, they need answers. We have family. Like, what are we going to do? And I remember that defining moment. And I remember thinking, okay, I have 2 restaurants. At that time, I was fully staffed. I have these people that are going to be relying on me for work, for their income, for their family, but also I need to keep them safe because we didn't know what we were dealing with.
Right.
So how am I going to keep them safe? How am I going to keep the customers safe? How am I going to do this? How am I going to persevere through this? So I remember that. And then that is when I realized people who don't know I'm Allie, they need to know I'm Allie. They need to know that I exist. They need to know I'm not just a brand, but I'm a person, a small business, female, business-owned, veteran that's trying to survive and fight to exist here still in the community. So I have since then have been very forthcoming with, hey, I'm Allie. Hey, I'm Allie. And majority of the response is good, but there are those people that'll be like, wait, you're the owner? You're how? Like, it's shocking to a lot of people. It's confusing. And I just smile and say, yeah, I'm the owner, and people will come in and they'll ask me, hey, can you go over my business plan with me? Can I get some advice? And if I'm available, I definitely like to do that for people. But I like to share my experiences.
For sure. And more and more veterans, it used to be people that I served with, people that I knew, but I've been out for so long now. I retired almost 12 years ago. So most of the active duty folks I meet them because they come and train, through some of our offerings. They train with us, but I have those discussions with people all the time, and I consider it to be paying it forward. So we benefited from the people who taught us. We benefited from the people who took a chance on us, especially as we launched our businesses.
Yes.
And I really believe in paying it forward as much as possible. 10 years from now, some other two people are going to be having a discussion, and they're going to say, well, I remember when Allie helped me with this.
People tell me that all the time.
That's cool. That is
super cool. I have all those messages either saved or screenshot. I'll never forget it.
Okay, that is super cool. Let's look at the folks at home, and I'm going to send another message out there. Folks, if you like this discussion that you're hearing between myself and Allie, I have a lot more of these wonderful discussions on my YouTube site. So please visit Elevate Your Leadership on YouTube and subscribe. You'll find a wealth of information there, leadership items, great discussions, things you can use to train your team, or things you can do to make yourself sharper, things you can do to prepare for an event. If you have something coming up, a hiring, a firing, a tough discussion, going to talk to a loan officer or a banker, I have a lot of tips and strategies sprinkled throughout the Elevate Your Leadership YouTube channel. So once again, please go to Elevate Your Leadership on YouTube and subscribe. Okay. Allie, you have really, and you're still young and you're still new at what you're doing, and you have an incredible future. Do you want to share any plans for the future?
So for the future of Anchor Allie's, there's a lot of things that are going to go parallel to it. Specifically right now with the restaurant, with the brand is, right now my focus is rehabilitation of the store's finances in the post-COVID world, because we've had such an influx of products, food, equipment, things like that. The pricing has changed significantly. So I want to get that under control, get it profitable, and I want to be able to maintain and adjust in this post-COVID world. Whether, we have staffing shortages again or something goes through the roof, I want to be able to have a solution. So I'm really focusing on that with the businesses now, with those two. That is my goal, is to get those things done. Parallel to that, I just filed for my first nonprofit. So I'm going to be debuting that in 2023.
Okay.
And it's called Allie's Anchor of Hope. And its focus is going to be just that hope for veterans and women as well, in different situations. So we're working on our mission statement right now, but we're going to focus on, we're going to have some women leadership stuff, veteran leadership stuff, but also giving aid to veterans in different situations that they might need in the future, that they don't feel comfortable, which we all know this being in the community, maybe going to the VA or to their family or, to their doctors. So it's just another outlet that I'm going to be able to provide to get them what they need.
Well, keep me in mind. I'll be happy to, donate my time and services in that regard. That's one of the things I love doing. It's so good to be in a position where you can give back.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Now, I helped start 2 foundations.
Oh.
And I have to tell you, it was a pain in the ass.
Okay, so should I not ask you to be a board member, or should I ask you to be a board member?
Ooh, so
think about it.
Yeah. We'll let a little time go by and give me a chance to think about that. But that really is. But one of them I helped start, Navy Special Operations Foundation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Incredible organization, and the folks who started it. Same thing. Joe Cockrell is the executive director, and when he said, "Hey, I want to start this foundation, what do you think?" And I was like, "I think you shouldn't do it. I think you should hitch your wagon to something else." But anyway, NSOF, as we call it, has gone on to do some really incredible things, really powerful board. And, the purpose is to serve the men and women of Navy Special Operations, which is Navy EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal Technicians, and Navy divers, active duty and veteran, active duty, veteran, retired, and it's an incredible organization. So little plug there for NSOF. So Allie, what haven't I asked you? What do you want to share with the world about Allie Stephens?
Sure. So a little bit more about what I'm working on. parallel to the restaurants is for future is I want to really be able to connect with more veterans who are starting their business, whether they want to go small time or big time. I want to be able to connect with them and have them utilize me as a platform to share their story or share their product or their service. Like that's very, very important to me because people need to eat every day.
Mm-hmm.
Someone might not need, what are some, veteran companies,
they don't need to fly every day, unfortunately.
That's why we have the I Fly mugs and Anchor Alleys.
That's right. So rotate that a little bit. Let's for camera 2. There we go.
Yeah. But I want Anchor Alleys. I'm a very generous, very kind, very helpful person. You don't get in the restaurant industry for money. I'll tell you that. You get into it for purpose. And I love helping people. I love impacting people, in a positive way. And Anchor Alleys is a great platform that people can utilize. So that's very, important to me. Also I wanted to work on my brand as a person, like myself, like who am I as a person and what can I do to, help the world be a better place, whether it's becoming a life coach, whether it's, I know it sounds silly, kind of my own little clothing line that I'm working on. I actually had a meeting about it last night.
All right.
Just mentoring, just helping other people. Like I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So,
well, the more you give, the more you get.
Yes.
And I have experienced that firsthand. But going back to leadership real quick, that's kind of my definition of leadership is I define leadership. I can define it in 2 words, and that's enabling others. And then the broader definition is using my experience, my education, and my training to enable others to accomplish their objectives. Right. So, within that, I have 6 words that I ask, which is, what can I do for you? And I think that's what you're saying as well. Is, being that servant, servant leadership, there's all kinds of theories about it. But for me, being a servant to those you lead is an ever present requirement, and something that as a leader, you have to think about every day. What can I do for you? So, Allie Stephens, how can people get a hold of you? If people want to know more about Anchor Alleys or Allie Stephens or anything, how can people track you down?
Sure. So, Instagram is a really good way to get a hold of me. So I have the Anchor Alleys Instagram, which is the restaurant that is managed by myself, but also by other team members. And then I have a direct Allie Stephens Instagram that I just started last week. So that will not be managed by anyone else other than me. So they could reach me on that. And I'm going to be posting an email address on there and other ways that people can contact me as well.
Super cool. Allie, thank you so much for coming on the Elevate Your Leadership podcast. And this discussion has made me kind of hungry. So I think I'm going to go get some lunch, and I have a pretty good idea where I'm going to go.
Perfect.